Targar friends. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Orc Mode workout. And today was Dynamic Effort Squat and Deadlift Day, and we are moving into a new phase of training. I'm going to have to do a lot of explaining, and this is something I've been saying for months. I think people realized months and months ago. Even when I was rehabbing my lower back, I basically said I was going to go back into a concurrent style periodization, and I've eased into pretty much my spin on the raw version of the Conjugate method, which is a form of concurrent periodization. It's a specialized program, but it's a very loose, flexible program. And I've tailored it myself towards raw lifting and still being able to focus on some of my pet lifts, things like the overhead press and all of that, although I've eased into push press for now. So today we start the band work. And I'm going to be doing these in 3-week waves. So I'm going to rotate through bands and chains. And then I might even take some of them and rotate in blocks of just straight volume work with straight weight in order to do pure hypertrophy type blocks. But these are going to be in 3-week wave loading patterns. So I'm starting at around 60%, and then I will load over the course of 3 weeks with bands. And then I will rotate over to chains for 3 weeks and repeat the process back and forth. And every now and then I may rotate in blocks of 8 to 10 reps instead with straight weight, just to again continue to get hypertrophy in the target muscles. Now this is going to be complicated to discuss, and this is going to take me probably weeks to explain all this with what I'm doing. This is stuff I used to do before. I think a lot of newer viewers who've only been following what I've been doing for a couple of years don't realize that I historically, even when I first came to YouTube, like 6 or 7 years ago, after I was rehabilitating myself after spending a year sick in bed, having to lose 100 pounds of fat, all of that stuff, and then going on to compete in powerlifting and get invited to Worlds. I think people forget that I actually endorsed a lot of the Conjugate stuff. I actually endorsed a lot of the discussion of speed, strength, and explosiveness and different forms of periodization. And I went over to minimalist training for a while because I think that for most people, I think training minimalism is the way to go. It's how you should build your base. But it doesn't mean that I don't personally have never used any of this stuff. And people forget I got my squat pretty much to 500 using these sort of methods. Got my deadlift to 600 using these sort of methods back in the day, even on YouTube. And I've actually historically been stronger than that in my 20s. So I've gone back to a lot of my roots here because I know how to use it. I know how to make it work. And I've messed with it some for equipped lifting and found that my raw lifts went down when I did this for single ply for a little bit. But I also understand why they went down. And so I'm going to be gearing a lot of this towards raw lifting and overall size, overall thickness, because that's ultimately how you become strong in a weight class. It is about body composition. Yes, we have all these performance elements, but it is about body composition, and you just need to be as big as you can be, particularly in the muscles you need to be biggest. Specialized hypertrophy work in those areas, combined with getting leaner over time, because quite frankly, if you're 10% or lower body fat and you can maintain your strength, you're obviously going to be extremely competitive as a strength athlete if you've trained appropriately. So we would look at things like body composition, right? And that's where this is going to go in the long term. But for now, I need to kind of discuss with you guys what I'm doing with all this band work. I'm working at just over 60% with not very large amounts of band tension. That's one of the things that people need to understand. We're simply trying to get the benefits of the accommodating resistance. We're trying to get a change in our strength curve to improve explosiveness. We are not trying to load 300 pounds more at the top than at the bottom, especially for raw lifters and especially for speed work. We just need to have the bands with a hair of tension at the bottom. So I've got everything spaced, and that's the benefit of having different peg holes and everything down there for the band pegs, is that I can adjust this stuff to where I can get the tension curves that I want. Now that took a lot of playing on the deadlifts, but what you guys will notice, even with the blue bands, they're just slightly taut. They're just a couple of pounds of tension at the very bottom when I get to the bottom of the box squat, and then I stretch them at the top. There is probably no more than 40 pounds of tension at the top, right? So maybe 40 to 50 pounds is all I have added at the lockout. And it's just enough that I'm fighting against a band that is trying to pull me back down, right? So you're fighting against that at the top, and you're doing these with compensatory acceleration as explosively as possible. Now, each week in the wave, I will add a little bit of weight. Now, probably for the third week in this wave, I will go up to 315, but I started at 275. I'll probably go 295, then 315 with the same band tension. Then we'll rotate over to chains, and I'll probably use about 60 pounds of chains. Or I could reduce it down a little bit. I could make it 50 just by determining how many links I set on the floor at the bottom versus the top. So I mean, you can adjust all that stuff even with constant change, because I have basically a 65-pound chain set, and I can adjust that however I need to get the sort of tension that I want for the strength curve. And a lot of what you're doing here is understanding we're not trying to get enormous amounts of tension at the top, just enough to create a difference. And for someone like me, who my thoracic erectors are a weakness, they're a weakness on my squat. They're what's limiting my raw squat more than anything right now. All this mild accommodating resistance on all my lifts other than normal back squats when I do them, which I will be doing them still on max effort days as a secondary exercise, will actually correct that issue, because my upper back tends to round forward a little bit as I approach the top. Well, it's having to fight against that even on my speed work. It's going to have to fight against that on my max effort work. So it's going to strengthen that area. But what we did here was, again, a hair over 60% of my box squat max right now, with approximately 40 to 50 pounds of band tension at the top for 12 doubles using compensatory acceleration. Now, another thing people are going to notice, I'm going to be switching over to mostly sumo pulling. And it's not that I don't believe in conventional, it's that I know from historically and watching other lifters and myself and coaches what sumo deadlift will carry over to conventional. You can build your conventional off sumo. The sumo allows for a little more training volume. It's slightly easier to recover from, and box squats carry over better to it. Well, if I'm going to be doing all these speed boxes, there's a method to the madness here. It will carry over to the sumo, because you guys notice the sumo deadlift and the box squat are almost the exact same exercise. Almost the same exercise. Now, for the speed work here, it took a little bit of work. Some people would be like, what are those blocks down at the base? Why do you have those at the front? They're there as spacers so that my bands were about an inch away from the uprights. The reason for that, I don't want the band on the back you see on the back side of the bar, I don't want it catching on the heads of the bolts, right? Because they're protruding, about 3/4 of an inch to a half inch inside there, and I didn't want them to catch on it and mess me up. So that's set there as a spacer to make sure that my bands are approximately 1 inch from the uprights. And because I needed to wrap it around, because I was at the two farthest pegs that I had, there was a hair of slack in the band. In other words, there was no immediate tension out of the bottom against the bar. So I had to be able to pull it around a little bit further around the front, a couple inches, to pull about 3 inches of slack out of that band. And that would have pulled it all the way against the post at the bottom. So I had to do a little bit of southern engineering there to create a spacer to get the tension I wanted to where the band was at least, taut, not really real force, but at least taut against the top of the bar. And I have no clue how much is at the lockout, but it's definitely a lot heavier at the lockout. And again, if it's too much, I could always add lighter bands, but this felt good. And here's what I'm going to say. Doing doubles with hook grip is tough, and my hook grip got worked like crazy doing this. This is only 365 pounds, right? 365. I got 355s on each side, plus band tension. But that lockout against those bands with the hook grip, my God, did it work. It worked the hell out of my hook grip. And I'm going to say, I really, really felt my hamstrings, abductors, everything else lit up, and my thumbs were shot at the end of this. But the upside of it, I got some amazing hook grip training, especially that lockout against the bands at the top, doing doubles, 16 total reps with that hook grip. Man, I got some grip training in there. I'm really happy with that, because I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to just do accommodating resistance now on the speed days for the sumo, and then I'm going to do back off singles with 90% with the sumo on my max effort days. So we're going to do back squats and sumo deadlifts on the max effort days, just normal after the heavy max effort squat. But we're going to do them at 90% for technique work, for raw lifting. And do the same thing with the bench like I did this week. What did we do on the squat? We did 425 for 5 singles on the back squat, because my max squat right now is approximately 470 estimate. And my max bench is, 335 to 340. So again, 315 for singles on the bench, the pause bench. So that's how we're going to do it. So we're going to do the same thing with the deadlift and the squat every max effort day. And we're just going to do squat variations for the actual max effort lift. And we're going to do bench variations for the bench stuff. And I'll focus on my overhead work like the push press on my dynamic bench day. Now, we're going to be adding a lot more total accessory movements in, because my training volume has to go up, work capacity has to go up. I have to bring up all my weak points. I have to hypertrophy all my weaknesses, because size equals strength. Size equals strength. And at the end of the day, all this speed work and max effort work and technique work, it matters, but we have to have maximum body composition. We have to. Means I have to be thick in all the right places to make me stronger. And yes, that's even going to have to include things like hammer curls. I'll discuss that on how that improves your bench press and creates a certain stability. That's a different topic completely. Now, I decided to do rows today. Why rows? Why on my deadlift day? Because I'm rowing. Right now I've noticed the connective tissue inflammation making chin-ups kind of difficult in my bicep. So I've gone over to pin lay rows. Well, I feel like pin lay rows are a better deadlift accessory than they are bench accessory. I'm not saying they don't help with the bench, but these are a deadlift builder, right? Good mornings and pin lay rows will build your deadlift. And I'm already doing most of my back work on this day, so I'm going to go ahead and for now, since I'm already pulling them from the floor, I can rotate this stuff in, and this will be most of my training volume as far as the big muscles in my body will be on my squat and deadlift days. And that way my bench days are going to be bench specialization days, because what am I doing right now? I'm putting more effort in the bench. The bench is my weakest lift. So it needs specialization. That means I'm only going to work stuff on my bench days that are going to improve my bench press directly. Only things that are going to improve my bench press directly. This is more of a stabilizing exercise that can improve bench, but I feel like it's a better deadlift accessory. And so this slot that we would normally have a pull-up or a chin-up, I'm going to work rows in, and I'm going to work it into my squat and deadlift days. And, 5 sets of 10 with pin lay rows. Good weight. And especially after deadlifting, like even that 205 for 5 sets of 10 is actually really, really hard. Oh, and by the way, yes, I'm shirtless. Yes, I have loose skin. Yes, I've lost 100 pounds. What I always remind to the people who want to hate on me for it, the people who really hate me, my trolls, you can make fun of that all you want, but that's proof that I have done something more difficult than anything you've probably ever accomplished in your life. Let that sink in. There are people who get surgeries, gastric bypass surgery, just trying to accomplish what I did with diet and exercise. So I'm going to wear it as a badge of honor, and I'm going to wear it as proof that to most of my detractors that I probably work harder than you do, and I'm probably smarter than you. Deal with it. So back to the training. The pin lay rows. These were pretty tiring. Even with a fairly light weight like 205, 5 sets of 10 on these after doing all those speed pulls, they were tough. Felt it in my biceps, felt it in my back. And that's something else we need to discuss. That's one of the things I'm going to discuss with different exercises I do also, is that, yes, our accessory movements like pin lay rows will make us stronger at the deadlift, but how do we get stronger at the pin lay row? So that's something else to look at when we're picking smaller accessory movements, is that what can we do to get better at our accessory movements? If your accessory movement will build a deadlift, if a pin lay row will help build a deadlift, how do we help build the pin lay row, right? Now I sound like Louis Simmons. The guy's a mad scientist. I love him. He's crazy as hell. Dude is crazy as hell, but he really is a mad genius. Then I did safety bar. Good mornings. My God, these are hard. I can't even do a heavy weight on these. This is really all I can handle for work sets. Well, again, indicative of where my weaknesses are. It really highlights where my weaknesses are. And I know that I have to build all those areas up. And this feels like it works multiple of my weaknesses, because we know my thoracic erectors are a weak link on my squat. I know that my lower back getting strained due to that other stuff that happened earlier this year could be a limiting factor. This builds my lower back. It stretches my hamstrings. It works my thoracic erectors, and it's damn hard. I was going to do 3 to 5 sets. I think on the 4th set, I only got 9 reps, and I had to quit. That's all I had left on this. So I got a lot of work done today. And all in all, I was very happy with this workout. I'm very happy with the new phase in my training. I like the direction all this is going. I've had to put a lot of thought into this for months as to the direction I was going to carry all of this. And I haven't discussed all of it in detail till we're getting to some of it. But this stuff is very, very heavily thought out. This stuff has been very heavily thought out. And this sort of system has to be flexible based upon what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it's all still orc mode training. We're going to get as orky as possible. Yes, I'm going to have to continue to work on body composition. These are things that we're going to have to keep doing moving forward while working on all these different performance elements as I continue to improve and become the best version of myself, become as orky as possible, as strong as possible. Am I going to have to get leaner? You bet. But we need to get strong. Keep getting strong, then slowly work the body fat down and see if I can be a beast in the 198 later on, right? 198 Masters? Yeah, I think that's doable. I think that's doable down the road. But for now, we have to just keep building up, keep addressing all those weak points, keep moving forward, continue to work on conditioning, continue to work on body composition, speed strength, max strength, shore up all my weaknesses, and keep moving forward and do it injury-free. This is pretty much my last set here, and I only got to 9 reps, and I was pretty well exhausted, but I'm happy with the workout. I'm going to do some face pulls and abs and maybe some glute ham raises later. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.